Hey guys, thank you for joining us for the Once Upon a Podcast first episode,
Podcast.
podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Davis, joined with Daniel.
Hey.
um, Today we're just going to talk about how bad The Godfather is and movies we think are much better than that. And if
Yeah.
you want to know what I mean by that, just stick around and
Now,
find out.
if you're hearing that and you're like, "What? You think The Godfather's bad?" Just listen to what we have to say. You might be surprised at what we say, because this was in response to really a greater cultural understanding of the movie, where you feel like you have to like The Godfather, and both of us watched it, and we didn't get the same opinions. So you might be interested in what we have to say. Maybe you're not. Maybe you've already turned this off, and we're just talking to ourselves right now.
And also, if you don't like what we have to say in this episode, I promise you're gonna love what we say in the next episode, which is all about the best traits the Godfather has. So just tune in for episode 2.
That's going to be a really short episode. All right. Thanks for joining. Without further ado, here we go. Did you ever look into that
I
movie?
haven't yet because I didn't know when we were gonna. I want to be fresh on it when we're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
talk about it, but I mean, I intend to watch it whenever we're gonna discuss it. I'm assuming you're gonna more lead that one because I'm assuming you kind of have some things you want to touch on that.
Oh, yeah.
You seem pretty amped up about that movie. I'm pretty excited to watch it, but is it? This is gonna sound stupid, but is it a musical? Because it's called Sing Street.
No, it's not a musical.
Oh, okay.
It's about a kid who, in Ireland, it's based in Dublin, Ireland. No, not Dublin. Well, it might be Dublin. I don't know. Some town in Ireland. And it's about a kid who wants to impress a girl. So it's based in the 80s. So he
Mhm.
starts like a rock band, but
Oh,
he ends
okay.
up falling in love with the music pretty much.
Hmm. Okay.
So it's really good. Like, it's shocked me. I just saw it one morning. I was like, "Oh, this seems kind of interesting," and I'll check it out. It was funny. It was like it's like a dramedy, that's
Right.
actually
Right.
my favorite genre.
Really.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
It's like it actually beats fantasy for me in a lot of ways. I'd rather write fantasy, but if I'm watching a movie, dramedy is my favorite.
Okay.
When it's like the perfect level of like you like really feel for the characters, but you're also laughing your butt off.
Yeah.
It's great
Well,
stuff.
I mean, I feel like that makes sense though because I feel like to just sit down and write comedy is not only difficult, but at times maybe kind of constrictive. And
Mm,
fantasy is so broad, you know.
yeah.
Uh, like, and I mean, you probably know this even better than me because you did your little stint on kind of the open mic scene and when you were in Nashville.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, that's difficult. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
and each kind of comedy is different. Doing the kind of comedy you were doing, writing jokes to make
You
people
mean
laugh at a
bad
live
comedy?
setting. Writing bad comedy is really hard. No, I mean, you had some good ones. Like you told me some of the material, and I mean, I was laughing. But like writing material that is meant to make people laugh in a live setting
Yeah.
is a lot different than something that's supposed to kind of hit someone in the gut when they're reading it,
Yeah.
which is different than something that's going to be in a visual format in like a TV show or a movie.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see a lot more like physical gags in that
Yeah.
because they have their whole body to express it. And in reading it, it's like, I don't know. I feel like reading comedy, I feel like it just is never, almost never going to hit like it's supposed to.
I don't know, dude. I actually feel like it's easier for me to put comedy in my books because I put funny scenes in it. They're not comedy genre, but there's
Right.
like
But moments of levity or,
yeah, yeah.
right. I mean,
And it's easier for me to do that than it
right.
is to write stand up. For one, because it's situational. Like, you're spending the story building the context so you can make jokes around it's just like if you and I are talking and we start telling each other jokes. It
Yeah.
wouldn't work on a stage because you have to spend time explaining the context for it to be funny,
Right.
and that's not funny. People are just like, dude, tell a joke. Don't tell me your whole life
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
But in a story, I can do that. I can I can, because you're not reading it for the comedy, you're reading it for something else, and then like as I'm telling the story, it's like I drop a little funny thing in there that
Right.
happens
Well,
situationally.
I agree with that, but I'm saying like writing a comedy novel, which I don't even know if I know of any.
They're out there, but yeah, they're few.
I mean, like, and I feel like the ones that are out there, a lot of them are probably relying pretty heavily on like a lot of vulgarity and like a lot of like
Well,
real.
there's a lot of not reading comedy that's like that too.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I mean, there's some clean, like Nate Bargatze or even Jim Gaffigan's on like the cleaner
Yeah.
side. You know, I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting thought I've never really kind of delved into, which is I guess why I went on that little rabbit trail. But yeah, I can understand where it'd be more fun to watch a dramedy, but more fun to write fantasy and just sprinkle in funny moments when you want, how you want.
Yeah.
But
Well, I also prefer reading fantasy. Like I don't like to read dramedy necessarily. I will,
yeah,
but and I've enjoyed dramedy type books, but like when I'm reading, I maybe it's just because I associated it with certain things when I was younger, but it's like reading feels like it feels like if you're not like using your imagination to its fullest extent when you're reading, it defeats the purpose of reading.
hmm,
Like you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because like a lot of times I'll read if I read like a dramedy book and it's good, I might like it. I'm thinking I would rather watch this,
right,
you know. But like when you're trying to picture things in your mind, I want to picture worlds that don't exist,
yeah,
you know,
or
or that
like
could exist.
powers or
Yeah,
creatures that are, yeah, no, I get it,
yeah.
I get it. Yeah, no, I guess I'd be in a similar boat. I mean, I don't know. It'd have to be a really good story for me to prefer to read a drama or comedy or dramedy or whatever rather than a fantasy book.
Have you ever read a really good drama book?
So, for book club a little while back, we read a book called The Frozen River.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the moment, I'm forgetting who it's by, so I apologize for that. But it's called The Frozen River. Fairly popular book amongst certain circles. There's is actually a girl in our book club who put it up for the vote. It got voted, and it is definitely more geared towards a female audience. It's written by a female, definitely for females and about a female. Um, and it is kind of a drama. It's the synopsis on the back is what kind of fooled me because I'm a huge murder mystery, like who done it nut.
Interesting.
I love that. I could watch it, read it. If I was any good at writing, I could write it. Like I love them.
Have you seen Glass Onion?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. A matter of fact, when it was on its little limited theatrical run, the first day it was out, my dad, my brother, my wife, and we all went. And I made them because I think it was on like Black Friday. They were like, "Come on, you want to go watch a movie the day after thing?" I was like, yes, because it's only going to be in theaters this weekend. We have to go watch it while. So
That's so weird that that's a thing now.
well, they did it like that because apparently after the success of Knives Out, Netflix reached out to Ryan Johnson and basically was like, "Hey, we want to like buy this, but not like from you. Like we still want you attached to it. We still want you to do your other because he had some other ones in the works, like Glass Onion, and now there's another one coming out next year. I forget what it's called.
Oh,
Um,
another Knives Out movie?
mhm.
Oh, I like those. I'm not even really a big whodunit guy, but those movies are fun.
They're good. Like it's to me, it's like the perfect balance of staying true to the genre. You still got some tropes in there because you always have to have your like super exaggerated side cast and like that way they're each easily identifiable. Oh, that's the hat guy. Oh, that's the coat lady.
Yeah.
They all have their little attributes. And then they all have their little mysterious, like possible motives,
Yeah.
understories or whatever. He does all that, but he also subverts the tropes so often in like ways that border on parody. So they're funny, but like also keep it interesting.
Yeah.
Like in the first movie, and I'm sorry, spoilers for Knives Out if you haven't seen it, it's very old at this point, but um in the very begin like the first third of the movie, when the detective is interviewing everyone, you find out I'll just say how the person died. I'll say it like that. That way it's still kind of vague. And I loved that because I was like, wait a minute, what? Wait, is this a lie? Is this one of those things where we're seeing this, but then as it goes on, we're going to see it play out differently and differently. And it wasn't. It's really what happened.
Yeah.
And then the mystery is actually a different thing, which is
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And Glass Onion was in a similar vein, so I'm very excited to see his new one. But back to the Frozen River, the synopsis is that it's set in like post Civil War America. Um,
So like now.
yeah, like anytime after the Civil War, you
It's
pick a
actually in the
year.
future.
Pick a year. Yeah, it's actually set in like 3523.
It
No,
is. I mean, it's post Civil War.
it's pretty recently post Civil War.
Yeah.
Um,
You should be like, this is post Garden of Eden. This book.
it's post when this book was written. It had to be written to be published, and yeah, no, it's post Civil War, and it's like so it's actually based on a real person. It's a real woman whose name was Martha Ballard.
Okay.
She was a midwife in that time. Real lady really existed and was extraordinarily gifted at what she did, even in that day and age with very limited medical like technologies and accesses to things like that, and in a pretty poor area. Um, she delivered like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of babies, and I think she only ever lost like one or two. Like
Wow.
very very successful birthing rate for her. She was very good, and
Especially probably the success rate was lower back then too.
oh yeah,
So that's an
yeah.
even
I
more
mean,
impressive
it,
resume.
it was it was really cool that it's a fictional book. The author does explain that she took a real person and her real. It's not really a diary. It was like a journal, like accounting
Yeah.
her day to day. So it's kind of dry, and there wasn't a lot of details. So she just took the idea of that and really expounded upon it and wrote this book. So there's a lot of fictional elements in here that never really happened, but the story was sold to me as a murder mystery because the book begins with a corpse found in their river, in their frozen river. There's a sheet of ice over it with no hole, but there's a body in there. And it's
Mm.
someone they all know because it's a fairly small town. And they're like, how the heck did he die?
That sounds like a
And
murder. Like that's like a textbook murder
right.
mystery.
And the whole catch is that this man was just on trial for being accused of raping another woman in that town,
Hmm.
and now he's dead. So, of course, everyone is saying, well, this woman must have killed him because he got off, he didn't get arrested. So it was that part of it intrigued me very much. I was like, okay, that's really cool. And like set in a different time period, there's a lot that the author could do with that. But really what it ended up being was, like you said, more of like a drama. It's more of her like family life and things happen that, like kind of get her and her family tied up in this whole case, but like the case is kind of pushed back to the back end of the book. And it was very interesting because I gave the book a very low score when I read it. I think on Goodreads, I gave it like a 2, which for me is pretty brutal because I'll give almost anything at least a 3. Like a 3 just means I read it, it was okay, didn't love it or hate it. And I
Yeah.
think I gave it a 2.
The only other book you've given a 2 is mine, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
No, that was a 1.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I gave one of them a 2 and two of them a 1. No, no.
Wait, I only wrote 1 book.
I'm getting ahead of myself here. And you.
Yeah, I went ahead and pre-ordered and just.
I've been
I've
reading
seen
through
what
your
this guy's
your
capable-
files on your laptop.
I
No,
pre-reviewed it.
I like I'm pretty forgiving with books because
Yeah.
for me, and actually interested to hear your thought on this too. For me, the ending can make or break it.
Oh, definitely.
Like it could be a pretty bad book, 2/3. If the ending is really good, that might bump it up to even like a 4 star for me. If the
Yeah.
ending's just that good, is that you too?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. Because
Is it?
I always thought that like I was weird for that because when I started doing this whole reading thing a couple years ago, like really getting into it and then doing the good reads, and I've been trying to take it kind of serious because to me, it's kind of a log that I can look back in a few years once I've started to forget some of these books a little bit, look back and be like, what did I think of this? What did I think of this? So I try and take it kind of serious and I write like long reviews and I've always once I started doing that, I started thinking about, I was like, man, 5 stars is not a lot of room. Like you kind of go from like really, really bad to really, really good, like darn near perfection, and then like a middle. So for me, like I said, a 3 is like average.
Yeah.
Anything below it is I'm gonna have some reasons I didn't like it, and anything above it is like I would probably read that again. Um, and I gave it a 2. And but the thing of it is, everyone that asks me about it, I tell them I really enjoyed reading it because
So you're a poser.
yeah, I'm kind of a liar, like because I got a lot of enjoyment out of reading that book, and I had pages and pages of notes for book club of like digging into that book and like kind of ripping it apart. Like and the funny thing is like I would listen to it again. It's not even that it was a bad book. There were a lot of things in it I didn't agree with, and there were a lot of things in it that I just didn't understand, like why is this element in here? It was never really revisited, blah blah blah. It'd be very cool for a later episode to have you like listen to or read that book and then we both talk about it. But again, getting ahead of myself, but that's probably the closest to like a true drama that I've ever read that didn't have like another main element, and maybe drama was like the subplot,
Yeah.
because I think every book has some drama.
Now here's a question: if it had been a film, do you think you would have enjoyed it more, or would have given it a little bit more grace? Like, let's say, given the cinematography was really good. You know, the storyline, the dialogue, the acting is all the same. Well, there's no acting in a novel, but like the acting's good,
Right.
that stuff.
So the first thing that comes to mind is I think if it had been a movie that someone put in front of me, I don't think I would have been able to give it a rating at all. I don't think I would have finished it.
Mm.
Like with me with a book, it's very hard for me to DNF a book.
Oh, dude,
Be-
that's so easy for me to do.
really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
If I'm not into it, I'm like, ah.
that rips me apart because like I said, I'm a person, I know myself. The ending can make it for me.
That's fair.
Like a book could be like middle of the road or maybe even leaning bad. Like the Frozen River, I had to like really trudge through that when I was listening to it, which helped.
Yeah.
But I kind of had to like push myself through the first half or 2/3 of that book. The ending was over the top, but it was good enough. And like I said, I enjoyed the process of taking all my notes throughout it. But there have been other books where I'm like one of my favorite series ever at this point is Cradle by Will White. I don't know if you've ever read any of those, but
I that's when I DNF'd.
really,
Yeah.
I'm
Only
oh, I'm not shocked, but because I was gonna say the first book, the only reason I stuck with that is because a buddy of mine at work, we're pretty good friends. He was very high on that. It's one of his favorite of all times. I think it's just one of those comfort series for him.
yeah.
It's gotten him through a lot, kind of thing.
He's an indie author, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would love to interview him if we
Yeah.
ever got a chance. But he was really high on him, and he was you got to read these. You're getting in this reading journey. I'm telling you, you got to read these. You'll like them. So okay, okay, okay. So I started the first book, and I listened to all of them
Okay.
and I'm glad I did because Travis Baldree has got to be one of the best narrator, voice actor, whatever you want to call him. He is phenomenal. 12 or 13 books, I think it's 12. I mean, got to be 50 or 60 characters minimum throughout all 12. And he has a different voice, like notation, pitch, pacing, like cadence for each character. It was phenomenal. And it really did help make the books for me. But that aside, the first book, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't understand any of this. I don't get this. It doesn't make any sense. I'm very, very, very glad I finished it because the back half, there were a couple moments where my jaw dropped. I was like, what? What?
Yeah.
Like it just totally takes a left turn, even
Yeah.
though I pointed right. It takes a left turn.
Well, my wife read it, the first one, and she told me what happens, and then I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I thought about giving it a second. But the reason I DNF books faster than movies is because it takes less effort for me to watch a movie. Like, I don't have to, like, I have kind of bad reading comprehension, which is ironic. But I have to really be invested in a book for me to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not gripping me, I just feel like it becomes a chore to me. It's like, oh, I gotta force myself through this book to get to a good part. So I just don't do it. And I could listen to it probably, like while I'm doing work or something. But
For me, I think it is
like if it
a lot
if it's a bad
easier
movie, I can
for
give it a
your
little
exact
bit.
same
It's hard for me
logic
to
about
stop,
it just taking less
just never
effort to watch
finishing
a
a movie.
movie.
Well, I shouldn't say
I
it's
think
hard,
that's
but
why it's so much
it's
easier
much
for me to
easier for
just
me to
not finish a
finish a
movie
movie.
because I have put so much effort into reading to where I've read in a book to then look back on it and be like, I mean, I'm like a quarter of the way through, or I'm like a halfway through, because I'm not going to get less than that and decide a book is bad. I feel like you have to give a book some time to breathe and like tell its story. Like you have to. So for me, halfway would be the minimum usually of where I'm like, okay, this just isn't gripping me. But by then I'm like, but I've already read halfway. Why not just finish it? I mean, I don't have to. It's not due for a homework assignment. I don't have to finish it by the next day. But like within a month, 2 months, here and there, knock a few pages out. That's why. But like for me, finishing a movie that I just started 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, and I'm like, this is not a good movie. Why would I finish it?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be honest with you. When we talked about The Godfather a while back, and you brought up this thing about The Godfather being like the last good movie or whatever that
Yeah.
that came out, and we were gonna
Well,
just
just let me clarify.
yeah.
I did not say that. I was
No,
quoting
no.
someone else who said
Right,
that.
right, right. And that's what I'm like. Whatever article, or was it an article or a video?
No,
Or
I was watching the Daily Wire backstage, and Andrew Clavin. I don't know which backstage it was. I mean, it was years ago. It would be really hard to find. He said something along the lines of The Godfather was like the last greatest movie ever, the last great film that in America, and and a lot of people agreed, or at least semi agreed with the sentiment. And I I hadn't even seen The Godfather, but I was like, what? Like this must be a fantastic film. I mean, you're telling me it's better than all the films I've seen since then, and I, first I was thinking, well, maybe he thinks it's an age thing that like because I'm so much younger, I just don't appreciate old movies. But then I got to thinking, I was like, no, that's not true because Rocky was made around the same time, and I love that film.
I'm actually going to do some research while we're talking because I want to make sure I'm getting my timelines correct here.
It's around the same time. I mean, I think it's mid to late 70s.
Yeah,
Might even be.
Godfather 72.
Star Wars came out around the same time. Love Star Wars. Star Wars was late 70s, I believe.
Yeah, I think the first one was pretty early 70s, like The Godfather.
Really? I thought the first one was like between 74 and 77 or something like that, but I could be wrong.
Um,
But I thought that was the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. And I was like, what? The last great film? Like, what did he mean by that? So that intrigued me enough to have to go watch it. And then I hated Andrew Clavin after I actually watched the film.
I had like a grudge with him.
Yeah. I mean, I like him for other things and stuff, but I was just blown away by that comment. I was like, after watching The Godfather, I was like, this is not only his definition of a good film, but the last great film
Right.
that has ever been made.
Which I want to start off with just saying flat out and plainly, that is probably one of the most asinine things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I
like,
know.
not even because I disagree with him, not even because of that, but just from the perspective of common sense. We're talking about film, which is an art, and by its very definition is so subjective.
Well,
that for you to come out and make such a polarizing statement and you have a platform, I mean, Daily Wire's, that's a platform. I mean, for you to come out on the Daily Wire and say, this is the last great film is insane.
I don't remember the exact quote he said, so I hope I'm not misrepresenting him, but
I hope you are.
we need some controversy to get this podcast going.
We need to get off the ground rolling.
Oh, yeah. So lie some more. Bigger lies.
Okay, The Godfather's awesome.
All right, that's too much. That's too far.
Way too far.
Yeah. But well, he said something along those lines, like it was the last. Maybe he said it was the last great mafia film. I don't know, which that's not a really high bar in my opinion because I don't.
I mean,
like
there aren't
mafia.
a lot of those.
There's not a lot of them, and almost none of them are good. Like I just don't like those types of films for one. But it's just about it's just about I
What's this
can
guy's name? Andrew what?
Klavan.
Clavin?
Yeah, it's Klavan. I like Andrew Klavan a lot, like the stuff I've heard him talk about, but I just fundamentally disagree with him. I will push back though on your comment that by definition art is subjective. I don't actually fully agree with that statement.
He says this is the last truly great American film.
That's what so you found the quote?
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, anyway,
That's
continue.
that's insane to me. But I see what you're saying. There's an element of subjective. There's a lot of subjectiveness. That's not the right term, but there's a whole lot that is subjective about it because you have different genres. Like for instance, I don't really like romance, like Pride and Prejudice. I like romantic comedies actually. I don't even care if I lose my man card because of it. Like a good rom com that's pretty funny. You know, it's a family friendly as long as it's not filthy. I don't like those, but uh,
Look, I'm a
those can be
huge
a lot of fun.
proponent of like The Notebook and Titanic. So
Are you
you're
really?
yes,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Well, I don't hate the Titanic. I can stomach the Titanic, but
Well,
the Notebook I hate.
I don't. What?
Yes,
Why?
it's just so over the top on the
I
romance.
mean,
It's
it
like
has to be.
they
It's a romance movie.
well, that's why I don't like romance movies. It turns it into this like it kind of idolizes romantic relationships in my opinion to the point where it's like it's just too much for me. I don't know. I can see why people might like it, but I don't really like it.
I could clap back at that, but we need to get on the roll here
Yeah.
with what we're.
What was I even talking? Oh, the subjective thing.
Yeah.
So like there's a huge element of it being subjective. Like for instance, in that example, that's a difference of opinion and genre taste. But I will fully concede that The Notebook is objectively one of the best films in that genre because for one just of its success and how many people like that book and that movie. It's very clearly a well done story because
For what
everyone
it is.
exactly.
Right.
I think subjectively, Twilight is one of the dumbest stories ever told. You know, personally, I think the writing is really bad. Like in the book,
Mhm.
it's not even like that. The story, it's like the actual writing just is hard to read.
Mhm.
It's almost as bad as mine, but um, but obviously, I mean, Stephanie Meyer is probably sipping margaritas on a beach somewhere. She doesn't give a rip what I think about it. She's
Right.
obviously very successful objectively. And
Well,
like
hang on. Let's give the best example that's gonna like blow people's minds of what you hate.
of what I hate,
Mhm.
I don't know. What is this? Sign language?
Swish and flick.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, so we're going here. For those of you who can't see, which is everyone because I'm not filming, I just cracked my knuckles.
No,
Yeah,
I mean we don't
I
got to
have.
dwell on it, but I mean that to me, if
Well,
you want to talk about something that's beloved widely, but that you just cannot have, you have no love in your heart for at all, like in any format,
yeah,
that's a good example.
that is true.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I hate every aspect of Harry Potter. That will probably I will probably make many enemies with that statement. But I will at least not do the thing Andrew Clavin did. And like I understand why people like it. I really do. I get the um it really like reaches people's imagination at a really young age. Like, there's a hidden wall in the train station that takes you to this hidden city. It's got
Yeah.
all those kind of cool stuff about it. But I have my reasons for spiritual reasons because of my beliefs, but I also think there's like the story is not quite as good as the hype is. But yeah, but we're not talking about that today.
We could.
We could. I don't care. Still trying to finish the thought about oh, okay. So like the last point I'll make about the subjective versus objective thing. Like look at sculptures of the past like that I don't even I'm honestly feel kind of silly for this. But I don't really know most. I know about Michelangelo who painted the Sistine Chapel, but I don't really know a lot of the names of the ones who did the sculptures. Like was it Michelangelo that did the statue of David?
It may
You know,
have been.
it might
I'm
have.
not super big on like that form of art, so I don't really know.
Yeah. But if you look at the detail in that stuff, I mean, there's statues where like there's a lady wearing a veil and
And it kind of like
it's
flowing.
yeah,
Yeah, I've
and it
seen it.
looks translucent
Yeah,
and it's stone.
yeah.
I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that like someone who just I saw a guy who was an artist online. I did air quotes. Just I keep forgetting there's no cameras. But he literally just stacked a bunch of buckets of sand on top of one another and let them spill, and everyone went like you can't tell me that that is not objectively worse than a sculpture like that. I think there is an element of
So we're towing some lines here, but I guess we're just gonna roll with it. So here's what I'll say, I'll say to that. My opinion is that yes, that is worse.
Mhm.
That is kind of lame. But again, see to me that is kind of what makes art so unique in any format. Like there is a book that I can read that you can then read, and we could take two different completely things away from it. We could have two completely different reactions, loves and hates, you know, pros and cons. Same for a movie, same for a song, a poem, a painting, a sculpture, or a big pile of sand. Um, you know, to me, yeah, that I mean, I feel like I could do that, and I'm not really an artist. And to me, I feel like if I can do it and I'm not really that thing, it's probably not that hard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, I watch certain professional sports and I'm like, yeah, I can't go out there and dunk a basketball or run 75 yards for a touchdown without getting tackled or whatever. But like, if I practiced enough, I could probably bowl a good 200, 250.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, bowling is it's a sport, but it's like,
Well,
is it the same? You know, I mean, it's
it's a
not.
game. I don't know if I'd call it a sport.
Well, people call it a sport.
Yeah.
That's,
Well,
I
they're
mean, that's,
objectively wrong.
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, you know, it I don't know. And I guess to me,
I'm
it's
not also I also am not saying that to be degrading towards bowling because bowling takes a lot of precision and skill. It's a very hard
and
thing to do.
nachos.
Yeah.
Man, it takes a lot of nachos.
Yeah, maybe I should get into bowling. But
But no, I mean, to me, it's the same concept. Like, is it the same level of art? No, not
well
in my
that but
opinion.
that's an objective statement though. A
But I'm
lot
saying in my opinion, like there could be someone out there who comes to me. That guy who did it could come to me and explain away all these things, and I'm not gonna say it would change my mind, but it might open my eyes to where he's coming from.
All right. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a wrench in your whole argument here. I didn't expect this conversation to
Well, I
go
can
this
dodge
way.
a ball, so I could probably dodge the wrench. But
All right. Um
it's a
you
quote from
could
Saving Private Ryan.
that's another movie I think is kind of overrated.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's anyway. I'm gonna get chase that rabbit trail and forget what we're talking about. What was I talking about? Oh, wrench in the argument. You could make the same case for ethics or morality. You could say someone does an action, and we all have different takeaways about what is right and wrong.
I absolutely agree with that.
So that doesn't mean that it's that doesn't what you believe about the event though doesn't change whether the event was objectively right or wrong. And a person could come and try to explain to you why they did it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't change my opinion or my mind on it, but like I might could understand where they're coming from. Like,
Yeah, but that even if you understood where they're coming from, that wouldn't change the fact that the event was object. Like if someone just walked up to a person randomly, slapped them in the face, for no reason whatsoever, just
well, I'll
because.
take it a step further. If someone, if I'm standing in a store or something, and a guy just walks in, he looks, you know, kind of sketch, a little suspicious, and I'm like, all right,
And he
eh,
says, "Nice shirt," and walks
yeah,
away.
yeah, I'm gonna be like, why you say that? This is not a nice shirt. No, if he just walks up and just finally, he's walking around the store and finally he just walks up to a dude and grabs him by the shoulder and turns him around and shoots him and kills him. And now I'm in there. I'm a witness. I have to hang around for this whole thing because I'm going to have to answer questions. And then I find out, at first I'm like, this dude's a psycho. He just killed a guy randomly. That could have been me. Oh my gosh. Like, what's going on? And then I find out through the process of like everything going on, the cops getting there, whatever, that the guy he killed um, was like in his 40s and messing around with this dude's like young daughter, like underage daughter or something.
Hmm.
That changes my like kind of perspective on it, but I still don't think it's okay to come into a public place with a bunch of innocent people and grab someone and just shoot him. Like, he's not on your property, he's not in your house. You went and like followed this dude and got a gun and murdered him in front of a bunch of people. Like, I don't love that he did that. I think that is kind of objectively wrong, but I mean, I get why he did it, Like I
Yeah, well, I understand that, but that doesn't change the fact that what he did was objectively wrong. You could even go as far as to say, and then I turned out it was an undercover cop, and that was a terrorist, and he was about to blow up the place. So
right,
the
you
cop,
could
but
change it to, but that's my thing though, is like
but that doesn't change though the fact that the act actually was objectively good. You just didn't have all the information. That's a different thing between saying it's a subjective event.
but that's kind of what I'm saying is like someone dumping a bunch of sand together. I mean, hearing you say it like that, it makes it sound very lackluster. And yeah, I'm gonna agree with you that like that sounds not nearly as cool as that awesome sculpture with the flowing veil or whatever. But if that guy was here and his whole passion in life has been art and self-expression through these abstract versions of art, and he can explain to me what that means to him, it's probably not going to change my mind that that's still a pile of sand, but it will give me more information and at least understand, what he was trying to do.
Yeah,
You
sure. I mean, but I would also it depends on the guy. I'm not trying to make judgments about him, but it's also like if art is really your passion that much, you know, people who have like at least give it your best. Like pour yourself into it.
Oh, I agree.
Like if it's really your passion, I'm like, well, you're doing your passion injustice,
I agree.
And there's a difference too between someone who's just starting out. I'm not going to critique someone who's starting out because we're all bad when we're starting out. I actually think that's really awesome. If someone's putting stuff out there, it's not that good, but they're starting out and they're working on getting better.
Right.
I have all the grace in the world for someone like that. But someone who claims to be like this big art and people are clapping and it's this everyone's coming to see this artist. It's like we're all playing pretend here. Any toddler can stack a bucket. I mean, probably wouldn't be strong enough, but mentally speaking,
Right.
if he had a crane, he
Yeah.
could he could stack a bucket of sand,
I
a
don't know
bunch
what a
of
big
buckets of
bird's going
sand.
to do to help him, but no, I mean, I agree with you, but like, I'm 100% with you on that one because as someone who's big into music and used to do my own raps and things like that, hearing a lot of what's considered popular rap music today, the
Yeah,
whole mumble rap thing, I mean, there's just no effort, no passion. I mean, there's no version of any poetry left in it at all.
yeah,
I mean, I get it, and I'm with you. I say exactly what you're saying. You're not doing your art justice. I'm not saying you don't love hip hop, but I'm saying you're kind of ruining it
yeah.
with what you're doing.
And I would also say they are objectively capable of much more.
Most likely, I
That's
think so.
that's the thing about
And if they're not, then I'm sorry, you don't deserve to be making money
yeah,
off of it. That
right.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on that.
It,
But cycling, circling or cycling, whatever. That back to
let's get on a penny farthing.
yeah, a what? I agreed and then was like, wait, what I just agreed to?
A penny farthing is those really old bicycles with the huge wheel and the tiny one on the back.
Uh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, all right. Um,
You're like, yeah. What?
um, circling that back to something like The Godfather.
Yeah.
So you and I are sitting here in 2024 and talking about how middling that movie was. Do we think that maybe people who grew up with that or like came up around that would genuinely agree that that is the last great American film.
No.
You
I
don't
mean,
think so?
no, like for one, it's a preference thing. I mean, my dad kind of grew up around that time. I mean, I think he's about as old as Andrew Clavin, and he doesn't like The Godfather. I mean, he's like me, he likes Rocky a lot. I don't think he's as big of a fan of Star Wars as I am, but he liked Star Wars. I mean, to say that it's the last great American film, that's just such a bold statement because
Mhm.
it's not even a great American like, in my opinion, it's not even a good American film. I don't know. I don't know. It just seemed like
So
a
let me ask then, I mean, on that, I mean, so then why is it so beloved? And why is it put on such a pedestal? And your as to your best guess or assumption, like what can we derive from having seen it that makes it so well loved even to this day where people make these kinds of statements? Because I don't think Clavin is the only person who believes that.
no,
Maybe he's one of the few who believe it that strongly, but
yeah.
there are a lot of people who put that movie and its sequel on like this pedestal of
Yeah.
like this is greatness.
Yeah, I mean, I remember growing up hearing about The Godfather and people talked about it all the time like it was such a good film. I just never watched it because I was never into it, but that comment made me be like, "All right, I got to see what all the fuss is about."
Right.
But I think there's a few reasons. I think it's similar to Star Wars in that it was kind of like a film that hadn't been done yet. Like, there was Star Trek before Star Wars, but Star Wars did something with film and that genre. Like they made this place seem like it could actually be a world that exists. And um, the Godfather, I think, probably did something like that to a generation of people. It's like, wow, I've never seen a movie like this where it's like about this mafia boss and what that world is like. Um, that's one of the reasons. Two, the acting was really good and the cinematography was really good. I mean, I'll give it that. I forget the guy's name, like Marlon something, who played the God.
Oh, Marlon Brando.
Yeah, um, he did a fantastic job. Al Pacino did a great job. Robert Duvall is one of the best actors ever. So I mean, great acting. Um, and like I said, the cinematography and the shots were really good. It made you felt the darkness of that whole thing. And then I think it appealed to a pull towards like this is kind of a little bit of a deeper thought. I'm not trying to take it too
No,
deep, but I think it appeals to a part of human nature that is drawn toward darkness and death and and evil, to put it, just to put it bluntly, because it's about all of those things. It's about someone turning bad and turning into this super evil guy, and it's about a bunch of people killing each other, and there's not really any hope or light in the film. In my personal opinion, I don't I don't know if this is objective or subjective. Going back to that thing, I actually think storytellers have a responsibility to bring light and hope. I think that's the purpose of stories, is to bring light and hope. And a lot of times, people, I think that you do a disservice when you use your storytelling abilities to just make you feel raw and sick about death and evil. It's just, I don't. But I understand the human nature draw towards that, and it's a the I didn't understand why people like the film at all until the very end scene when you see Al Pacino, like now he's the Godfather and people are coming to him. You didn't finish the movie, did you?
mm,
Yeah. Well, at the story is basically about Al Pacino's character not wanting to be a part of that life and then getting drawn into that world
right.
just by it just happens. And at the end, his like he think he's basically trying to convince his lady he's out of it now. They finished everything, and then as she's leaving, she turns around and sees these guys coming up to him and making deals with him, and then she looks at like they have a final glance, and I was like, oh. Okay, now I get what the whole story was supposed to be about. I wasn't even catching that. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't even realizing that's what it was supposed to be about until then.
Well, I mean, I gathered that he didn't want to be in it, and but it's like he doesn't feel like the main character for a lot of that
Yeah, I
movie.
know.
So it's like, why do I care?
Yeah.
But so I will say this real quick on the note of you talking about stories are meant to bring light and hope and not make you feel raw and sick about death and things like that. Um, just genuine question. So, do you think that a story can still be a good story if it is not necessarily like a happily ever after, like if it's more of a warning than it is a like light-hearted or like light bringing kind of story.
Well, a warning is bringing light. It's shedding light on an issue.
Right, but I'm saying like
I know
I
what you're saying. Like, I'm not saying every story has to be a happily ever after, we're frolicking off into the sunset type of thing. But there are there obviously in this world there are really dark and terrible and horrible things that make you feel sick to your stomach. That's a reality that we have to deal with, and stories are one of the ways we can cope with that. I'm not against including those elements, but the point is, what are you pointing towards? Is the message we can't do anything about this, and that's just how horrible and terrible and awful the world is, and we just all need to sit and sulk in it? That's kind of the message of the Godfather. It's just an evil, horrible place, and
just a vicious cycle, you're gonna be stuck in this no matter what you
yeah,
do kind of thing.
exactly, right.
Because it kind of that
Let me get
story. Well, just real quick on that note, like that story almost starts. It's almost backwards. It
Yeah,
starts with the lighthearted. They're at their wedding,
yeah, that's
and
true.
he's trying, and then like it ends with him in it anyway.
Yeah,
It's interesting, but
that's
anyway,
it's basically a tragedy.
in a way, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of classic stories, like back to the days of like Shakespeare, Oedipus, all these things, like are tragedies.
that's very true. But I don't really like them. Like Romeo and Juliet, I think is terrible.
Really?
Yeah,
I think it's
it's
over the top, but I think it's
it's
an interesting story.
well, it's interesting. I mean, it's obviously, like I said before, it's objectively one of the best films in its genre. Oh, you know what? I'll say actually about the like Joker, for instance. That's a movie that just makes you feel raw and sick inside. And I didn't like it for that reason. But I would still say that is a objectively better movie than Godfather. The way the story was told and like the being drawn into the character, it's a similar type genre. Not I mean, it's not a mafia, but it's dark and gritty, and it's about death and evil and how bad the world is. It's a much better told story in
Mhm.
Joker, than in The Godfather. I even think that's a like. I'm not just trying to dog on The Godfather because
No, I mean,
like
I'm not taking it that way. I'm trying to kind of get some criteria here, I guess, through conversation because for me, like to say The Godfather is the last great American film, which is the statement that this kind of episode is mostly rolling off of here.
Mhm.
Our whole goal here is to kind of list out a couple of like movies that, in our opinion, have been made since The Godfather, that whether or not they are on par with its level of popularity, and like wide range acceptance, they are good movies
Yeah.
objectively. Um, so I guess that's I'm just kind of trying to figure that out because I get what you mean. Joke, yeah, I could see where Joker is in a similar vein,
Yeah.
but maybe better told. And that actually lends itself to a point I was going to make, which is that I personally, this is extremely a subjective take. Like I'm by no means saying this is the truth. I personally don't believe any movie that was made like that long ago could ever be called objectively or subjectively the last great movie ever made
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think that anything that did something for the first time, while it will always be remembered for that and put on a pedestal for that, kind of like The Godfather, it's the first version. And the
Yeah.
first version is never going to be as good as what can be done later. And we've seen that time and time again. I mean, you look at like I'm a huge like superhero nerd. You know, I love like the old like the original Batman movie and like the original Superman movie and like those are great. They are fantastic. But I don't think they hold a candle to some of the comic book films we have coming out today. Not all of them, but some of them. So like the ones that are really good are way better than
Yeah.
those. They just are. Um I think writers and directors and actors have kind of over time gotten that formula and diluted it more to like a concentrated version of like what the fans want to see.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they've gotten the pacing better, the action better. Obviously, technology lends itself to
Right.
making a lot of those better. But even if you want to talk about something more grounded, that like, because that's a little unfair. Okay, back then they didn't have that kind of technology. Fine. If you want to talk about something more grounded, I mean, we were just talking about Knives Out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone could convince me that what's that like? It's like a famous murder mystery movie, and I think it's based on like a or there's a board game based off of it or
Clue?
Clue.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could convince me as groundbreaking as Clue was at the time. It had like multiple endings, so depending on which one you went and saw it at, you'd get a different ending. So people were discussing it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I still think Knives Out took that formula and years of people doing that murder mystery formula and took it and flipped it on its head and did it better.
Yeah.
And the cast is better. I mean, the actors nowadays, because they've had all those people to learn from,
Yeah.
they're better, and that's the whole goal. You want to see art progress.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion. People could argue with me that that's totally wrong, and that's fine. I'm aware that's very much a me thing, but I just don't think you could ever say anything made that long ago is just the best version of it.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I think it's like saying that it's sort of like saying that the inventions like Benjamin Franklin's inventions were objectively better than like the iPhone,
Yeah,
you know?
that's a good point.
Like cuz he was the one who I mean, the flip side of that is people completely disregard our ancestors because they're like, "Well, we're so much more advanced now." But that's only because we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely,
Like Benjamin Franklin paved the way for things like the iPhone to be
absolutely.
invented, and it's stacked up. And I think it's a similar concept. Now, I think that there's a tendency for it to slip back down, and we're starting to see that. Like I think architecture in the past 20 to 30 years has really gone downhill because it's just become about building these huge blocks
How
with
fast
no
can you get
life.
a neighborhood up for
Yeah,
money? Yeah,
exactly. That's what come down to. So there's it comes in waves, but like so I'm not saying that everything that's in the future is necessarily better either, but I think it's a similar concept. And this actually came to mind while you were talking. Back to your point about like could you tell a story that's like a warning and it doesn't have to be a happy ending that's but still points to hope. I can think of two really great examples of that. Infinity War um and Sound of Freedom. Have you ever seen Sound of Freedom?
I have.
Yeah. Those are two. Sound of Freedom more so deals with some of the most dark, evil, horrible types of things you can imagine.
Yeah,
But there's a note of hope at the end. It's about showing you there a way out of this, and pointing to a solution to this problem. And Infinity Wars, it's a tragedy. It depends on how you look at it, because I actually think Thanos is the protagonist in that story. So I think that if you go based on him being the protagonist, it's not a tragedy because he won. But it there's an element in the air after the end of Infinity War where we know this isn't the whole story, and we know something's coming after this.
right.
So it deals with a really dark thing. The hero's lost, and you have to learn how to deal with loss in order to grow from it.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to end up going down a completely different rabbit trail if I keep up this conversation. I don't want to take it too far off of what you were saying, but
No, I mean that was kind of my point on that, and I
well, I was
think
talking about when you were saying how art has progressed and stuff. Like,
right.
if
No,
you
I
wanted to
mean
keep talking about that,
I'm kind of tapped out on it. I just think that's kind of where I'm at on that, and with I kind of want that to be known before we go into this part where like I'm listing a couple movies that I think are better because at the end of the day, there are still a is still a very large crowd of people who would put The Godfather above anything I'm about to list.
yeah,
But my opinion is it can't be better because these are newer, and in my opinion, almost anything newer is going to be better. But like you said, not because just well we're better. It's because of The Godfather. It's because of movies like that that paved the way, like you said, kind of built the foundation of what cinema is today.
yeah.
This like mind blowing experience. I mean, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, and it's funny because you're actually a part of it, but I don't know if I've ever told it to you from like my perspective.
You were there,
You
but
were
I
there,
don't
but
know
like
if
I don't
you.
know if you know the story. Um, you hit me up. This was some years ago. I think it
Did
was
it
even
hurt?
before you were married. You and Claire might have just started dating. You hit me up and you were like, "Hey, are you off today? Are you free? I really, really, really want to go watch this new Mission Impossible movie. Claire doesn't want to go or can't go or something.
Oh yeah,
Would you want to go with me? I just don't want to go alone." And I was like, "I mean, I've never seen any of them,
and I don't
uh,
like you.
and I don't really want to hang out with you." No, I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I've never seen any of them, but if you don't think that'll matter too much, I'll go." And you kind of told me that, I mean, they're kind of simple action spy movies. Like, if I had any questions, kind of thing, you'd be able to answer them. Okay, cool. So I meet you at the theater. We go in. I have no idea what to expect. I have never seen a Mission Impossible movie ever. We sit down.
And that blew my mind when I found that out.
Yeah, well, I probably have a list of those that could blow your mind. Never seen Forrest Gump.
Really?
Never.
Wow. Okay, we got to do an episode where you watch that and I get your opinion on. I don't even know what a fresh opinion on that movie is like. So that would
You're
be
not gonna
interesting.
like it. I can promise you that.
Oh, you don't like it?
From what I've like seen, like I mean, obviously I've seen bits and pieces. Like I know a lot about the movie. I kind of know the general gist of what happens. Like I've just never watched the whole thing. It does not seem like something that would catch my attention at all. I would do it
Here's
for an episode, but I'm probably gonna rip it apart.
well, I wouldn't be against that. Like here's the funny thing. It's all about the ending, right? That movie is really great up until the ending, in my opinion. And
Ah,
then the ending was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
okay.
and apparently the book was even worse. The ending of the book was like even more tragic,
Oh my gosh.
and
Okay.
it was like it's one of those things where it just makes you feel raw and hopeless, and it's like, wow, that's dumb.
I want to ask, but that's actually one thing I don't know is how it ends. So I guess I shouldn't ask. I'll
Yeah,
just have to watch it.
I probably shouldn't have even told you that.
It's all right.
But you were having a thought.
But basically, we go in here. I have no idea what to expect. We sit down. We're like kind of near the front, but like not so close to where it was like, it was like we were just close enough to the front to where it was like the screen was all I could see. Like it was my whole vision.
Yeah.
And when that movie started to the time it ended, that is the only time ever in any movie that I've been to see that I have literally experienced the like edge of your seat kind of thing and like felt at time like I could finally feel when moments would die down for a minute because I felt like, oh, I can breathe.
Yeah.
Like that it was like action after action. It was like set piece after set piece, and they were just it never stopped. And
Yeah.
when it did, you knew it because like it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm catching my breath for a second. It was a crazy experience for
You
me.
know the final movie's coming out in March.
Yes, I have heard that, and I was trying to binge all of them to catch up for the last one that came out, but
Mhm.
I ended up not making it in time. But I would really like to see the last one in theaters just because it is the last one.
Dude. Okay, I'll just say this one thing and then Claire and I, this is when she was pregnant before we had Evangeline. We were living in Nashville. We went and saw the first of the two-part last movies
Mhm.
in theater. In the middle of the movie, someone's phone rings. He picks it up and starts talking like full volume.
Oh my
He's speaking
gosh.
Spanish, and I was like so blown away.
Like, you don't even know how to react
I
because
know
it's like
the gall. It was a packed theater opening night, and I'm like, dude, movies are expensive, man. Like you're ruined. I could not believe how oblivious someone could be
oh, that's
to.
wild.
So finally, someone finally went like, hey, and then someone was like, hang up the phone, and then he kept talking. And that made me angry. And I was sitting like as far away from him as you could be in the theater. And I turned around and said, hang up the phone. Like, it just like came out of me. Anyway, that is
That's awesome. I'm glad you had the gall to do that because I don't know if I would have. I would have been upset, but I don't
yeah.
know if I would have yelled.
Well, I only did it because other people did it first, so I'm not that much of a. But I actually felt kind of. It like just burst out of me because I was just so. I wasn't even. I
We
was
got to
thinking
find
about.
out who those few people were
Yeah.
so that we can make sure they never go jump off a cliff.
Well, they were the ones who really had the courage to actually, because I was thinking, I was like, somebody's got to say something. I should have done it, but I felt dumb because I just repeated something someone else said, so I kind of rode the coattails of his heroism. But he, it just came out. It's like I wasn't even trying to. It just the impulse. I was like, the nerve of this guy. Someone told him to hang up, and he's just talking like anything. It was, oh man, it blew my mind.
That
And
sort of like reminds me of the Tom Segura story of him being in the theater and like getting mad for a second, but then like the dude stands up and he's really big and he like completely changes his whole attitude on it. But anyway,
yeah. So
that was such a crazy experience for me. And
yeah.
the thing is, like I'm sitting here thinking as we're talking about like movies I would put on this little list of like, okay, if I had to come up with a few that are better. And so I'm sitting here thinking, and like one of my first, I'm thinking of like my first thoughts go to like legendary movies
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm going to get less pushback on those. So like I'm thinking of like Terminator 2,
Yeah.
crazy movie.
Yeah.
I just saw it for the first time in my life like 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I like up until like my senior year of high school, I had never really seen like a lot of movies. Like my parents didn't take us to a whole lot of movies. We didn't watch a whole lot of movies at the house. My mom was extremely like uh, careful with what we watched, and my dad didn't care as much necessarily, but like he wasn't gonna like go above my mom's head to like get us. So, I mean, we just didn't watch a lot of movies, and when we did, it was rare. I mean, because like you said, even back then, it's kind of expensive. I mean, it's always
Yeah.
been kind of pricey to go to them, and you know, granted, when we were growing up, we still had like Blockbuster, but
Yeah.
we didn't do that all the time either. But so I didn't see a lot of movies until like I got to like senior year of high school. Netflix, the app
Oh yeah.
version was kind of starting to come out, and like the girl I was dating at the time, her parents had the subscription service where you could pick a movie and they'd mail it to your house.
Yeah. I remember that.
So I started like they would always have a movie there. So we just started watching it. Then the app came out like a year after that and they had the Wii and they had the app on the Wii and so whenever me and her were bored, we would just put a movie or something on. So I started like watching a lot of movies there.
Hmm.
And then, I got a job and I finally had a little bit of my own money and I would go to like Walmart, Best Buy, Target, and I would just like go all over the little discount bins, anything. And I would leave with like stacks of DVDs, and I've still got most of them.
That's cool.
But I just started. I was like, oh, Rambo, never seen Rambo. Oh, the Rockies, never seen that. Still haven't. I own them. I haven't watched them yet.
Oh wow.
Um, Terminators, I never could find, and so it was a
So have
couple
you've
years.
never seen Terminator?
Well, a couple years ago,
Oh
my brother-in-laws they sat me down and they're like, "You got to see at least these two."
yeah.
They showed me the first one. The first one was okay. I
Yeah.
didn't love it, and I kind of told them I was like, "I don't know if I want to watch the second one." They're like, "Trust us, you want to see the second one."
Yeah.
The second one is now probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
I was just thinking a second ago because I've already got some ideas about this. This is popping in my head. We should do a sequels that were better than the originals
I'm down.
because I have a few of them.
I'm
It's
very down
because
for
that's a
that.
rare thing, but there are those series like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. That there are a few, but yeah, like that. I was thinking about that was one of the first ones that popped in my head for this little list. But then I was like, man, but if we're going off this same logic, like that really might not be the best action movie anymore. So I was like, so what are some good ones that have come out since then? And that story pops in my head because that was one of the craziest experiences I believe I've ever had in a movie theater ever.
I
That
love
movie
it.
was insane.
I love it. So have you seen the others now?
So I watched either the
Okay.
first two or three, and I enjoyed them.
My opinion is the first one is just a classic. It's not as it's like we were talking about earlier. They've gotten better as
It
it's
is a
gone on.
lot different.
Yeah.
'Cause my only knowledge of it was that
Right.
one with, like, Henry I don't even know what number it is, but
It
the
was
one with
number
Henry Cav
6.
yeah, number 6. That was my only knowledge of it.
Yeah.
So I go into number 1 and I'm like, "This is way more like you said, like, just grounded classic
Yeah.
spy espionage action." Very cool, though.
Except, well, you did see the first one? I don't
Mhm.
wanna okay, yeah. So, the most iconic scene is when he's, like, hovering over that thing, and then he drops the water. That's the most edge of your seat part of that movie,
Yeah,
and that was something that was kinda like a new thing in those types of
right.
movies. But I love the first one for just its classic value. It's a good movie, it's a good '90s movie, and then, uh, the second one is the worst in the series, in my opinion. It's not awful, but it's okay. I mean, all the slow motion shots and the cheesy love scenes between him and that girl, about how, like, there's that line where she's like, um, he says, "Would it make you feel better if I didn't want you to do this?" Yeah, then feel better. It's like a cheesy line. Um,
Very early 2000s.
yes, it's super. And then the
We did go through a little awkward, like, teen phase of movies in the
we
early
did,
2000s. There was a lot of duds in that time
yeah.
frame.
And I'll say this, for that time frame, Mission Impossible 2 is one of the better movies. So it's like, it was even still good for the time it came out. But like the ridiculous action scenes, like the just trading clean punches and the on the beach and stuff, is like, it just lacked any
Yeah.
kind of. So I didn't expect much. But then Mission Impossible 3 was like as good as 1 and a little bit better because it brought some new kind of action. And I was like, wow, okay. And then 4, in my opinion,
That's Ghost Protocol, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's when it completely went
That
to a
I
new
know that's
level.
one I haven't. So like 4 and 5,
Oh,
I have not seen.
oh,
Yeah.
dude, you've got 4 was when I was like in love with the series. Like I watched 4. That experience you talked about in the 6th one, that happened to me in 4. And I was like I couldn't. And he does all his own stunts. So
Yeah.
everything that you see is
I'm
actually
not the
happening.
biggest Tom Cruise fan, but I got to give the man credit.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal at his stunt work.
My brother and I have said almost the exact same phrase. It's like Tom Cruise is kind of a weird dude, but he makes some good action
Oh, he
movies.
does. Yeah. He does. And I also give him credit for not being one of those people who, I don't know if you've heard this, but like they're trying to advertise this part 2 of Dead Reckoning or whatever as like the final Mission Impossible. But when he's interviewed about it, he refuses to close the door on it. He doesn't want this to be a thing of like, we're gonna drum up more business for it by calling it the last one and then pop back up in a
Oh
couple of years.
yeah,
So he's saying like he's not closing the door on the fact like he doesn't want to call this the last one.
interesting.
I've been rambling, so I want you to kind of kick us off. Like if you had to pick,
to do some kicking.
is the Godfather an instrument?
We're never gonna get this thing done.
I
All
know.
right, that's my fault.
No, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
What's a movie that you think is better than The Godfather, Daniel?
That's a long list, man. I mean,
Pick 100.
you might as well ask me how many atoms there are in the universe. Probably not many atoms.
I knew a couple at
I
school.
was I was going down that road too. I was about to be like, I don't know many atoms. Never trust an atom. They make up everything. But
Never trust a Dan. He yells.
anyway.
You didn't like my Dan yells joke?
No.
Okay.
I want to just cut all of your laughs out and just put them.
Just make an
Make a
episode
whole
of just that.
episode of just your laughs.
And now Christopher's laughs.
I don't even know why I'm laughing.
I'm laughing because you're laughing.
Oh,
You're funny.
thank you. Who are we talking about?
Movies.
Oh yeah. Okay, movies that are better than The Godfather. I like all of them.
From
let's
the
just
one
start.
that was from the one that hit theaters the day after The Godfather
Yeah.
to today.
Okay, Star Wars, obviously. Rocky's that's a great American film. I mean, if you're talking about, he said the last great American film.
Right.
Rocky has got to be one of the top 5 great American films ever. It's one of the best films ever. Honestly, I'm not even really a huge fan of them, but I think both the Terminator movies were better.
But not all 9.
No, it got too ridiculous. After the second movie, it was
Yeah,
too
I
dumb.
agree.
And then Jingle All the Way. Have you never seen that movie?
I have.
Oh,
Isn't that the
okay.
one where he has to go get the action figure for his?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie's so ridiculous, but it's so funny. Home Alone 2. Oh my gosh. That's another one, sequel's better than the original.
What?
Oh man. Are you for real right
Why?
now? It's just, I mean, the first one's good. Don't get me wrong, but the second one I thought was just like extremely funny. I just thought it was even funnier than the first one.
They're both great,
Yeah,
but
they're both great.
I don't know if I could say one's better.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Um,
So, okay. So let me pick one here. So what
Spider Man, all the Marvel movies, even the bad ones that I don't like.
like Shang-Chi?
I okay, after thinking about it some more, Shang Chi was better than I just was trying to get a rise out of you, and I said Shang Chi sucked. I didn't.
Now you sound like my brother-in-law.
I didn't actually think that strongly about it. You said spoke so highly of it, so I just texted you and was like, dude, Shang Chi. Well, I can't even do words.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi sucked, but it didn't actually. It was an okay film. It was I think you it was I don't like it as much as you did.
Well, I mean, I didn't love it. It's
Yeah,
it's not like in my probably even top 10, but I mean, for the quality of what they've been putting out the last couple years,
that's fair.
2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. God, it's hard to believe it's been that long since Endgame. To me, it was upper tier of that. It wasn't even the best of that because I think No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness were better than that.
Yeah.
But I
No
liked
Way Home was
Eternals a lot.
awesome.
A lot of people hated Eternals.
Oh, I thought you said the Turtles.
I do love the
I
Turtles.
thought you were saying the Ninja Turtles,
Yeah,
but I was like, that's a weird way to say it.
I do love the
And then I
Turtles.
was like, that's not even Marvel.
Have you ever seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
I've seen bits and pieces.
There's an episode where like a convict bus like flips over in the city and they all escape. And near the end of the episode, they're all Jake, Terry, a couple of the characters. They're all in like the sewers looking for the last guy,
Hmm.
and Jake is being normal Jake and being an idiot, and he's talking about, man, it stinks down here. I can't believe Donatello and Leonardo like liked it so much. Like it makes sense for Michelangelo because he's kind of a slob, but the other guy and Terry's like telling Jake, shut up. This is not the time. He goes, Terry, we're in a sewer. I'm gonts to talk about the turtles. So anyway, that
That's pretty
reminded me of
good.
that.
I like that show. I think it's funny.
It is. I was gonna ask,
I haven't seen the Eternals, but I want to.
like for you, what makes
Oh, you were supposed to think of movies too
I mean,
before.
I've got a few. You
Okay.
want to hear them, or
Well, ask me what you're about to ask
because I
me.
was gonna say I wanted to ask, like, just I mean, instead of just listing, which I mean, I guess we could both list and then delve more into it if that's how you want to tackle it. But I was gonna ask, like, kind of what, like, pick one of your movies or something, or even a different one. I just want to hear like your reasoning, like your version of why X movie is better than The Godfather.
Well, I've already said why, for like the most part, is because I think The Godfather fundamentally has a flaw where it's about darkness and evil and no light of hope. Um, but it's also just not like you said. I didn't even realize he was the main character until the end. Um, Al Pacino, like I thought it was all about The Godfather, and the way the Godfather just dies was like, so he's just playing with his granddaughter in a field and he
Yeah,
just dies. I'm like,
like an assassin or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I hardly even understood why all these people were dying throughout the whole thing.
yeah. It's all kind of a blur to me.
It doesn't make any sense. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because I don't understand that world or that genre very well, but it's just like people are just killing each other for no reason. And then I understood some of the reasons the characters did some things, but not all of it. And then so the plot, okay, you're telling me reasons why the other films are better. The plot's easy to follow. I'm invested in the characters. I care about what they want and I understand their motivations and why they're trying to do what they're going to do, and the problems that they face are specifically related to those goals and motivations. I mean, it
Mhm.
just basic story type stuff.
I wonder if, like, in its time, like in that day and age, like when it came out, if like him dying was like a plot twist in the movie. You know what I mean? Like it didn't come across that way to me because it felt very
Yeah.
underwhelming when it happened. But like I wonder if it was meant to be like a whoa, holy crap, he died?
Probably, but the thing is I didn't care about the character at
That's
all.
what I'm saying. I mean, for me and you, I don't think it hit how maybe they intended, if that's what they intended. But I'm wondering, like if back then, like Like you said, it's called The Godfather. He's the Godfather, and he was one of the, like, bigger named actors on the list for that movie.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, going to see it and then, like, there was the close call with him dying earlier and he survived. And then he's, like you said, he's on, like, that ranch or whatever, and he's playing with his grandson or granddaughter or something,
I think
whatever.
it's his granddaughter.
Granddaughter out in the, like, flowers and stuff, and there's all the sheets flapping, and then bam. And it's like, I wonder if that was, like, meant to be like, oh my gosh, like, he died, he's dead this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Probably that's what they meant, but it did not hit me that way at all. I was just like, "What? Okay, that was random."
Because what made me think of that is because I'm sitting here thinking, like, what to me makes a great movie? And to me, like, I don't think every movie has to have this, but I can't think of a movie that had a good one that didn't benefit from it, and that is a plot twist. To me, a good, like, a well done plot twist can really take a movie to, like, that next
Yeah.
level. I mean,
Or at least a change in trajectory where if it's not a plot twist where you're like your jaw's on the floor, it's at least like information that changes the stakes or changes the game and
right,
gets you to realize, "Oh, now they have to accomplish this obstacle
right.
to get what they want."
Well, and it's like, you talked about, like, Infinity War. To me, Infinity War, it's probably one of the best, like, blockbuster movies that has come out in decades.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of wasn't the same for me because as, like, a comic nerd, like, I knew somewhat how it was going to end, but even at that, who they chose to kill off, my jaw was dropping
Yeah.
each time.
So you knew Thanos was going to win?
Oh yeah, I knew he was going to win in that movie
Wow. See, that
because,
that was a twist for me. I was like, "What?"
yeah. See, like, I didn't know that. That's crazy that
That I didn't know?
I didn't know that you didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
I don't know how, well, I thought so the comics of Thanos came out how long when did Thanos first appear in the comics, do you
So
know?
the first Infinity War run was, like, back in the 60s or 70s.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was that old.
very old story.
So
Now
did
they made some massive changes for the
I
movies.
know one of the things they changed was Thanos' motivations because in the comics he was in love with death, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. I like what they did in the movies better from what I've
Yeah,
heard.
I think it hit better. They wanted to make him a more dynamic, like, nuanced villain, and I liked it
Me
because
too.
I really liked that he so soundly beat them in that movie, and really, he wasn't even, like, animalistic about it. Like,
Yeah.
he never hurt anyone that he didn't have to.
Yeah.
He just wanted to do his thing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like he had this air about him that, like, he almost expected them to let him because he was so convinced that what he was doing was the right thing.
Yeah.
And I did like that. And
Yeah.
I st- again, as a comic nerd, like, I like the idea that death, like, there's this, like, embodiment of death, and, like, he's in love with her, and to, like, impress her he wants to do this. I think that's cool. It's a cool concept, but I don't think it's very nuanced. And also, I don't know if it would have hit the right way with, like, general audiences.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I really enjoy what they did with it. But yeah, I knew, like, that's how the comic run goes. Is he does end up collecting them all, and he does snap half of the heroes and stuff away. Like, they all just vanish, and then they have to, like, regroup after some time and figure out who's left. And now in the comics, Adam Warlock, who's in Guardians 3, after all of this, in the comics, he's already around and he's, like, super crazy powerful. And he ends up actually putting the gauntlet on and bringing people back and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you because I remember you told me when the Guardians movies came out that you didn't even know who those were.
Mm-mm.
But you're a big comic person, so you were like shocked, like who are even?
Well, to be fair, also, I mean, so again, this goes back to, uh, I didn't, like, watch a lot of movies or read a lot of comics and stuff growing up. Like, my parents just didn't buy a lot of that stuff. So it wasn't until later, like late in high school that I started getting a lot of that knowledge. And then at the time, I started with like the things everyone knows. I was looking at Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and things like that. I wasn't really delving into like these B-list characters, because the Guardians of the Galaxy were at best B-list characters, if not C or D in Marvel Comics before the movie and its success brought them kind of to like the forefront and more notoriety. They weren't like, they might have been a big deal in like the 80s or 70s or something, but even then they weren't like household names. No one had heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy until that movie,
Yeah.
which says a lot about
Yeah.
that cast and James Gunn and what they did with that property.
So
But
then I guess Guardians weren't a part of the original Infinity Run, right? Because you would have known about them.
well, I haven't read it. I've just like gotten the
Oh,
the overview of kind of what happened, like through watching YouTube videos and stuff. Like I don't own those
gotcha.
comics or anything,
So
but
Adam Warlock, is
but
he originally with the Guardians
but
in
I
the
was gonna say
comics?
Adam Warlock. I don't even know if if his origin story in the comics is even necessarily tied to the Guardians. But see, in the MCU specifically, the Guardians are kind of like their way of like introducing any kind of cosmic thing. I mean, if you
Hmm.
notice, they kind of did it with Avengers 1, but I mean, really you learned more about Thanos and stuff from the Guardians
Yeah.
stuff, because that was how they tied in this like cosmic villain.
Yeah.
So like going forward, that's probably going to end up being the Fantastic Four that do that. Like, cuz I think we're going to get like Galactus and the Silver Surfer and stuff, and I think they're going to be the ones who more handle that.
I didn't. When did they first show up? Was it the Doctor Strange movie
The Fantastic Four?
in the MCU? Yeah.
Well, yeah, Reed pops up in the Doctor Strange 2 movie briefly.
Okay.
But it doesn't even really matter because they're not sticking with Krasinski for Reed. They got
Really?
Pedro Pascal.
Oh, that sucks.
I have always been a huge proponent to get Krasinski to do Reed, and I'm glad they did it for at least that cameo. Um, but it did bum me out because I thought he would have been a great casting.
Yeah, he's perfect.
Um,
Did he not want to do it or something?
I don't know. I don't know. I can imagine. I'm imagining probably not, because he's so well loved. I mean, he like anyone who's a fan of him is really a fan of him. Like they'll watch anything with him in it because of
Yeah.
like his time in the office and stuff. So I can imagine that. Yeah, probably he didn't want to sign on for something as beefy as like a Marvel contract.
That makes sense.
We may still see him again though, like in Secret Wars or something. But I guess to move on to like one I would pick. Have you ever heard of the Nice Guys?
No.
That's one of my favorites of all time. Like that,
Does it have Ryan Gosling in it?
it does.
I think I've heard of it. I haven't seen it though.
That might be.
Is this like a Godfather type, same genre type movie?
So no, but the reason I picked it is because Godfather's kind of like a period piece in a way, I would think. I mean, it was filmed back in the 70s, but like do you get a 70s vibe from it?
From the Godfather?
Yeah.
I well, that's a good question. I was gonna say yes, but I think only because of how it's filmed. Like it
Well,
this
because of when it was filmed.
yeah.
But see, that's what like for me, I guess I worded that wrong. I don't think it's a period piece. I worded that wrong. Because to me, I get no strong vibe of like the setting.
Yeah.
Nothing about the setting sticks out to me. None of the set pieces or anything. I mean, I remember the field where he dies,
Yeah.
and I remember the beginning scene where they're kind of in a dark room and then kind of outside in the yard for a little wedding. And but I mean, nothing else really like you know the Nice Guys is it was shot in like the late 20 teens. I don't remember what year, but it or 2010s ish. Anyway, it but it's set back in like the 70s in Hollywood, California. And it just amazes me. Like how you were talking earlier about Star Wars. They did this thing with this genre on a film scale that made you feel like this place could exist. It's not quite that extravagant because it's Earth, and I mean it was a real time period, but like it baffles me that they can take an area and just make it look like a certain time and place. And like they fill it with all the right vehicles and like advertisements on billboards for stuff that would have been out around that time. And I mean, it's just crazy to me. I love
Yeah.
it. And this movie is set in Hollywood in the 70s, and it is so true to that and so good. And again, it's a murder mystery kind of, but
Interesting.
more of in a funny, like buddy cop almost way. Ryan Gosling plays a private detective who's looking for this girl named Amelia, and uh, Russell Crowe plays kind of like a fixer, like carries the brass knuckles around kind of guy. You hire him if you need help. Like one of his opening lines in the movie is like, you know, I don't like I'm not like a legit business, but if someone's messing around with your underage daughter, and one of the first clips shows like this girl who's in like a freshman in high school, and she like goes with this dude who's like driving and owns a house, and they're going and she goes back to his house with him, and when she like leaves because he got her weed,
Mhm.
and when she goes to leave on her bike, Russell Crowe rings the doorbell and punches him in the face and said, "Stop messing with little girls," and he walks away. So like that's kind of like what he's like a fixer or whatever.
Yeah.
And Amelia hears that there's two guys after her, but she only has the name and information for one. She gives it to Russell Crowe. Well, the information is on Ryan Gosling. So he goes to his house and does the same thing to him. But come to find out, Ryan Gosling was not one of the two bad people after her, but that's the only name she had.
Oh.
So they end up working together to take down these other two, and it leads to this whole bigger conspiracy. It's a very cool movie.
You got me intrigued. I
It's
kinda wanna watch it now.
it's very cool. I will tell you, it's rated pretty hard R. Like I just want
It's
you,
not even R, it's pretty hard R.
yeah. Like I always try and like tell people. Like I was just having this conversation at work the other day with a guy. Like I never know anyone's sensibilities with that kind of stuff. You never know anymore. So I
Yeah.
try and be as clear with everyone. Like I really enjoy this,
Yeah.
but just be warned kind of thing. But
I
to me, that movie is so well done. Like the comedy is so non-forced. It feels so natural. Ryan Gosling blew me away. I could not believe he was so good at comedic acting.
yeah.
He blew me away. The writing, phenomenal. The mystery, it just really keeps you. You're like, who? Like, what is going on? Because more and more people start popping up dead, and you're like, it's like a trail. It was very good. That's one of my favorite of all time.
I might check it out, we'll see. It depends on how hard art is.
Pretty.
Okay, maybe not, but I was gonna say, there's a rated R movie that I watched recently. I don't really like to watch them, but it was so intriguing that I kept watching it. You wanna talk about plot twists, like Vanilla Sky. Have you ever seen Vanilla Sky with
Mm-mm.
Tom Cruise? That movie is one of my favorite movies, and I hate that it's rated R because it's got some scenes in it that like I was skipping through them because like why do I have to include this? But there's one of them where obviously something very important to the plot happened that I missed, and I had to go back and like watch through it, and I was like, oh dang! But the ending especially, but the whole movie is just like, what's going on? That you want to talk about a plot twist? You'd probably like that movie.
I
It's
might have
like
to check that out. I think I've heard of it. I've just never seen it.
it's so underrated. It was actually originally a Spanish film called Open Your Eyes or
Oh,
Abre los Ojos. And
very
I
good.
yeah, thank you. And Penelope Cruz was in the Spanish film, but she
Right.
also played the love interest in Vanilla Sky.
Oh, cool.
And I watched the Spanish one with subtitles just because I was curious after seeing Vanilla Sky. And it's good, but Vanilla Sky took it to a whole new level. And
Is it better than Godfather?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
Uh,
I
it's
really
it's
wish.
it's kind of sad. Like it's another one that deals with dark themes, but there's still enough of a note of hope at the end of it where you're like, all right. But it's wild. It's like there was a part in the middle of the movie where my jaw was on the floor. I was like, what is happening? So yeah,
I really wish I could or we could somehow like break down like what makes that movie so bad. I mean, aside from just the obvious of like like you've kind of said, weak
Well,
writing.
yeah.
In my opinion, the setting isn't very strong. It doesn't really evoke any kind of time frame or period or even place. It just kind of
I,
it could be Italy, it could be
the,
New York, like the
right. Yeah.
countryside of New York. I don't know. I don't know where it is.
Well, at one point he does go to Italy, and they actually do make that. So you're probably asleep at that point.
Probably.
But I mean, the dialogue wasn't very good. I couldn't follow any of it. And again, I kept thinking maybe it's just a time period thing. Maybe it's just, but Rocky, like I knew what was going on in Rocky, even though the dialogue is a little bit weird. I have to follow it a little harder. I still understood what was going on,
Right.
but the dialogue was bad. I didn't understand who was the main character and who I was supposed to be rooting for. And like all of them ended up being pretty despicable people, but they try to make it seem like there's like a saving grace because they're a family. And it's like, yeah, but you murder people. Like that's a pretty bad family.
Yeah, well, they're good at what they do. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering if if it's just a case of like people like it because they know they're supposed to like it. Does that make sense?
I think there might be something to that.
Like
It's like
because I don't remember it having any redeeming qualities. Yes, I fell asleep for part of it, but that part of it was at least midway, if not a little more than midway through. Like I
yeah,
remember the whole thing of him going to that place and dying, so that was a good bit into the movie.
yeah.
Um, and a lot of the other stuff I'm only fuzzy on because it's been a long time since we both watched it and we're going to talk about it. So, and I just could not bring myself to do it again for this. But I'm just wondering if if I don't remember it having any redeeming. There are so many movies, and that's why I say maybe it's just a subjective thing, like that Claven guy or whatever,
Well,
Caven,
certainly
whatever.
opinions are subjective, yeah. But I I don't I think it's an objectively wrong statement to say that it's the last great American film. I think it's a subjective opinion to say it's not even a great American film.
And what makes it so American?
Yeah, that's another great question. It's an Italian. It's about an Italian mob boss.
What makes it? I mean, yeah, okay, it's
Uh,
made in America.
yeah,
So were a lot of movies.
right.
Probably most of the best ones in the last couple decades were made in America
Yeah,
or with Americans or whatever. I
there's
mean,
not very many great movies that haven't been. I mean, Hollywood kind of started the whole movie industry
yeah.
worldwide. So,
I mean,
but Rocky, in my opinion, embodies um, like a classic American film way more than The Godfather.
and he's Italian.
That's also true. So it's better at being Italian than The Godfather too. Is the Italian
The
stallion.
Italian stallion. Adrian.
Those are two of the worst Rocky impressions I think ever on the
Well,
mine and
both of
yours.
yours. Mine was good. Both of yours were bad.
That's fair. Um, but yeah, like it's an underdog type of story, which is very American. Like
Hmm.
the whole revolution is considered an underdog story. It's like a bunch of farmers and pitchfork with torches and pitchforks against the British Empire,
Yep.
and it's a like you know beating all the odds, sticking with it when it gets tough. Apollo Creed comes out and like I think this was Rocky 1. It might have been Rocky 2. But he
I think
comes
Apollo Creed was too,
no,
wasn't he?
he's in the first 2.
Oh, oh,
Apollo Creed, he fights him again in Rocky 2.
oh, oh.
But I think he comes out in like American he's dressed as like Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? He's
Well,
in
I
like
know
a
the outfit. Yeah,
yeah, and he's
I
like
own it.
maybe that could have been Rocky 4 too, but so maybe but Rocky 4 is extremely American too. Because he's like it's like America versus the Soviet Union.
Right.
That's pretty much what it was about.
All those movies just scream
Classic
like
American film.
American, like you said, underdog, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Because didn't that one where he fights Dolph Lundgren? Didn't that one come out at a time where our country and Russia was kind of like button heads? I
Yeah,
don't know if it was
it
the
was in the
Cold
Cold
War.
War.
Was it? Because I thought the
It was
Cold War
around
was
the
like
same time.
I was gonna say I thought the Cold War was like not long after World War II, and those movies came out in like the
No, Cold
80s.
Cold War is 80s.
Oh, okay. Well
Reagan
then,
was the one who ended the Cold War.
oh, okay, then yeah, I
He
guess it
was
was. Yeah, it was right around that time then.
I think his second term was 84 to 93.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
Well, that would be two terms,
Yeah, two
just
terms.
about.
Yeah, so I think that was his yeah.
Yeah, but then it was the same. Yeah, so they're very American then, especially at the time. I guess kind of in closing, we want to thank our sponsors, Daniel's parents, for letting us use their room over their garage.
We're totally not grown adults. Oh, you just
but
broke their candle.
yeah.
He did not break it. Just in case you're listening, Dad.
But no, I mean, thank you guys for listening.
Were you doing the official closing right there?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just joking around. I just ruined it.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening. This is just the first one or one and a half or two, however we're going to cut this episodes. We have a list of stuff we're amalgamating to talk with y'all about. We're really looking forward to it. And I think Daniel wants to throw in a word about kind of the future of where this is going.
What? No, I'm just kidding. No, I was just going to say, thanks so much for tuning in to our very first episode of Once Upon a Podcast. Really excited about this. This is a lot of fun. If you're watching on YouTube, we do plan to have video at some point in the future. We just don't have that set up now. So if you like what you heard, be sure to share it with your friends, spread the word, and that's all I have to say about that.
Still haven't seen that.
Yeah. Is that it?
I guess so.
All right, that's a wrap, everybody.
Yay! We're gonna have to like Photoshop a crowd in, or whatever the audio version of Photoshop it. Or we're gonna have to audio shop a crowd. This podcast was recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Actually, it's pretty funny. We should do that. I'm just gonna add laughing tracks when you're being totally serious.
Yeah.